I'm here with Beth Bernstein today, one of my favorite people of all time. And so, Beth, tell us just a little bit about yourself.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for asking.
Sure.
So, I'm born and raised right here in Columbia.
Okay.
I have an identical twin sister. Some people might not know that because we've
I
lived
didn't know
probably,
that.
oh, you didn't know that. We've lived apart longer than we've lived together, which is crazy, but I talk to her every day. I'm one of six children. I've been practicing law almost 30 years.
30 years. Wow.
Yeah.
And you're here with your
Brother
brother,
and husband.
your brother and husband. Okay. And what kind of law do y'all do?
So it's a general practice,
Hmm.
and I should say it's a family firm, but we don't do any kind of family law.
Okay.
So we don't do any domestic, meaning adoption, divorces, anything like that. We do not do. But this was a firm that my father started. He began practicing law in 1943.
Oh, wow.
He was 21, and this was something coming into the firm with my father. When I graduated law school in 1994, my brother graduated in 93, a clerk for a federal judge, and then
Hmm.
we came in with dad at the same time and just grew up with wanting to be able to help people.
Yeah.
And so you getting back to the question you originally
Mm-mm.
asked me on what kind of law do we practice? We do everything. We try to maintain a general practice, which you don't see today as much because law has gotten so specialized. But
What's your
what I
favorite kind of
do is,
case?
yeah. So I do real estate. Once I knew I wanted to have, I was married and wanted to start raising a family. It was hard to do too much litigation,
Right.
being really connected, like having to determine your schedule with the whatever the trial judge determined was what your schedule was going to be. But favorite kind of case. So, I mean, I do litigation, I do real estate, residential real estate,
Okay.
wills, probate administration.
Gotcha.
So, but and those kinds of areas are really good for me because, I like a to-do list. I like
Hmm.
to be very organized and get things done. But the
Sure.
whole practice does criminal defense, workers' comp claimants, rep does, my husband does commercial transactional work,
Hmm.
and yeah, so we kind of run the gamut. We just cover it
So
all.
you've been in the state house for how many years now?
I'm in my sixth term, so I'll be going in my 12th year. Yes.
That doesn't seem
No,
possible.
it doesn't.
Wow. So are
Right?
you enjoying it?
I am. I never saw myself running for a political office. I
Hmm.
was always kind of involved in just being in Columbia and being a lawyer. It seemed that I was kind of involved in political campaigns just because Columbia is where the state
Right.
house is.
Right.
But I never really thought about running for office. And then someone suggested it. And I think for women my age and women who are older than I am, really it took somebody to suggest for a woman to run for office because it's not something we grew up thinking that we would be
Hmm.
doing. And I kind of laughed it off initially. But then I really said, well, you know what? He asked me for a reason. Uh, Let me kind of delve into it and see
Hmm.
what it's all about.
Yeah.
Ignorance is sometimes bliss, but I really
Yeah.
did. So I looked to lawyer legislators. One of my closest friends, James Smith, Vincent Shaheen, Joel Lurie. He's not a lawyer, but
Hmm.
he's like a big brother, and really asked them what it entailed, and they all said, we need people like you to run for office.
Hmm.
You can really
Hmm.
make a difference
Yeah.
and you're in it for the right reasons.
Yeah.
So I took that to heart. It really takes some time to learn the process.
Right.
I consider myself very bipartisan. I'm moderate. So I work across the aisle all the time. And
Right.
really in today's climate, you really have to be able to do
Sure.
that. And I really started to focus on women's issues, children's issues,
Hmm.
and things that I really um, hopefully can make an impact across the state. I focused on health
Hmm.
issues too. And so it's been very rewarding
How much time does that
opportunity,
take out of your?
a significant amount of time. People are like, oh, are you still practicing law? I said, yeah, that's my day job. Yeah.
Right.
Um, it's considered a part-time position, but really if you're doing what you really set out to do, if you really want to make a difference and impact, I mean it takes us a
You have
lot of
two
time. It's not,
full-time
yeah.
jobs.
And I'm a mom,
Yeah.
so I have three, and I'm a wife, so rip demands a lot too.
What do you
Sometimes
like
I'm
to do for
kidding.
fun?
As a family, we'll go skiing.
Okay.
I snowboard, rope snowboards. My two daughters, one skis, one snowboards. So I have
Yeah.
a daughter who's a sophomore in college, and then another one who's a sophomore in high school. So we take family trips once or twice a year. I
You're an
think.
outdoors person.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's cool.
And I think it's probably more because my husband is he's very outdoorsy. He
Hunter,
rides all the time.
fisher.
No,
No,
not that kind.
no.
Hiking. I mean, really taking advantage of the natural resources that we have in this state and in North Carolina. I mean, he mountain bikes, we gravel ride, we road bike, we do all sorts of things.
Wow. How is it working with your husband?
It's been good. I mean, I worked with Daddy, with my father for so long. I mean, not as long as I probably would have liked, but and then my brother. So just throw Rip in the mix, and it's fine. It works out nicely.
What is one thing you could tell us about the State House that um, most people probably wouldn't know, or that was the biggest surprise to you?
It was always surprising to me that we couldn't come together on certain issues with members of a different party. Um, when the commonality is there,
Hmm.
but the viewpoints. I mean, and it takes compromise with everything. And I guess another surprising thing is how some people are unwilling to work together and willing to compromise.
Hmm.
Every relationship in life is about compromise.
Right.
We compromise with our spouses, we compromise with our children, with our parents, with our friends, whatever the situation. And for people to think that in the setting of a public office that you shouldn't compromise is my way or the highway is really doing a disservice. So I think that's probably is probably the most
Gotcha.
surprising.
What's one thing that you've done that um, that you're the most proud of?
My first bill that I sponsored um, that passed and was enacted into law, Governor Haley signed it, was the HPV vaccine bill, which it was not a mandated vaccine, but it really gave an opportunity for people to have access to it.
Hmm.
Really worked hard, and I worked hard with my Senate colleagues to get that enacted into law. It was an uphill battle, but I was really proud of that. And then the vaping at our pediatrician appointment, the pediatrician asked about vaping, and I was like, "What's vaping?" They're marketing this vaping on these websites and Instagram or whatever it was at the time. TikTok, I don't think was a thing then, to really target children to say it's safer than smoking. And so a lot of people went into it, and I said, that's just not right. So I worked on legislation to really kind of do another education thing, but to talk about vaping, and that passed. So and
Do you get a lot of calls from constituents?
I do on a
Hmm.
particular issue maybe that they see.
Kind of come
I'd
in
like
waves.
more people to be engaged. I try to be in the community as much as I can, and if I'm in the grocery store, people will come up to me and so
I'm
forth.
sure.
Yeah, and no, but I love it because I mean, I'm representing the area that I was born and raised in. I live in the home that my parents built that I grew up in. I go to the same Publix, which used to be A&P when I was growing up. It's just there's that sense. I mean, I live in Forest Acres, so I mean, I just I feel so connected to the community,
Hmm.
and so I love it when people want to express to me concerns, or they want to celebrate things or whatever.
Yeah.
I've brought lots of high schools up to the State House for their state championships or whatever
Hmm.
the remarkable things that our schools here do. So, one thing from this interview that I hope people get from it is to be engaged, be informed, so know your community, vote,
Hmm.
and things of that. I mean, you really do. You can only help your community if you're involved and engaged at whatever level, but the most basic level is to vote in every election. And now these days the primaries.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for
Okay.
taking the time
It's
to
always
talk
good
to
to
us.
see you. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes, yes, yes. I
Okay.
appreciate